blind advocate. You want the truth? You can't handle the truth. The blind advocate will get you there.
And good afternoon and welcome to another live. Today we're going to talk with Ian Westmoreland. I came across Ian's profile on LinkedIn and went and had a deeper dive into some of the stuff he's done, like Kintsugi Heroes, which was really impressive organisation. Good afternoon, Ian.
Good afternoon, Jeff.
Thank you for joining us.
My pleasure. Thanks for the opportunity to share a bit of my story.
Would you like to fill us in on what got you to this point?
Jeff, how far back do you want me to go?
Oh, just when you finished work and decided to start the volunteer organisations.
Probably a good idea because I'm 71 and there's a long way to go back. So in 2013, I was increasingly thinking there's more to life than making money and delivering software changes. So I was working as an IT manager. And on the 10th of September 2013, I got on the train to come to work and I continued to read a book my youngest daughter had given me. And what I read that morning transformed the thinking. I used to say for the next stage of my life, but it's really for the rest of my life. And in May 2014, I quit paid work. So I've been a full-time volunteer for the last 11 and a half years. And in that journey, it started off, I was a volunteer mentor to kids in high schools, Sydney high schools, and also primary schools. I actually signed up for another community mentoring program. That journey led me to start my first not-for-profit, which is called Mentoring Men, which is a free program where we skill up men like me to provide support to men going through life challenges like job loss, relationship breakdown, loneliness, isolation, etc. We launched that in 2018. By the end of 2021, we had sufficient financial resources for me to put in place a paid team to do what I was doing. So I stepped aside from all the mentoring men roles, and after a couple of months off, decided to start my second and final not-for-profit, which is called Kintsugi Heroes. And Kintsugi is that Japanese craft where they take broken pottery and they put it back together using a precious metal like gold. And the repaired product is far more beautiful and valuable than the original piece. I'd never heard the term before, but as soon as it was mentioned to me, I thought this is perfect for the charity that I want to set up. And you can see here, I've got a piece of Kintsugi craft here. It's a great, it helps people reframe how they see that adversity, that addiction, that disability, that trauma, that abuse, that relationship breakdown, the grief. So we record stories. We've done over 300 stories now, and then we publish them through podcasts, through audio broadcasts, through radio broadcasts, through books and through events. So that's, I guess, the last 11 and a half years, Jeff. So from that life-changing moment on the 10th of September up until today.
So the Kintsugi Heroes, we're going to paste the website into the chat section there. It's a really, like I said before, it's a really impressive program you started, and it's a great name for it too. The Kintsugi. With the program, how is it operated? Do you personally take over control of that, or do you have other people?
So I'm the CEO, so I do a lot of the stuff in terms of overall processes and all the mechanics of running an organization. We've got between 50 and 60 people involved in supporting the organization in one way or another. But I've only hosted a couple of conversations myself. We've got probably 16 or 17 conversation hosts who are allocated depending on what the podcast theme is. The reason I don't do it myself is I probably talk too much, and And so I'm not suited to that. Plus, there's a lot of stuff going on. Jeff, in many ways, it's similar to this, but we record the conversations mostly online. The conversations, they're allocated to video editors, so we edit them into YouTube format, audio format. We also broadcast on community radio, so they need to be shortened to 27 minutes and 50 seconds to go on community radio. We also use AI, and then we've got an author in New Zealand who converts many of the stories into books. We've published 4 books of stories already, and books 5 and 6 will be launched in Sydney in December in Hornsby, the area I live. And we also run events, so we all our resources are provided for free. We hand out the books at the book launch event. So that's how we get the message across.
So you interview people with disabilities, and I take it's a wide range of disabilities.
Yeah, so at the moment, we've probably got between 10 and 15 different projects. And the stories of people around disabilities is I call it one of our passion projects. It's something I think it's really important. I think we need to help change communities' attitude, maybe give some inspiration to people with disabilities, maybe to shoot for the next goal. That goal could be just, going for a walk in the morning, or could be seeking employment or whatever. And that's hosted by this amazing guy, Daniel Doherty, who works for Jigsaw, and his paid job is actually helping people with disabilities find employment. Most of the people who get involved in Kintsugi Heroes do so as a volunteer. But we've got other projects. We're doing a series around migrant and refugee journeys to Australia. That's called From There to Here. We're doing another series around the critical role that animals can play in improving our mental health. We're doing a series around First Nations or Indigenous stories. I passionately want to do one around cancer stories. We've captured a lot of stories around cancer. I'm going through a journey myself in that area, but it'd be great to do a dedicated series around that as well. So we've got all these other projects that we're doing, but disabilities is one of the ones that's incredibly active at the moment, and we're looking forward to launching that podcast in the first quarter of next year.
So, with your experience over the last 11 years, what do you think's been the greatest asset for people with disabilities to get back into the community?
Well, I feel it's a win-win-win. There's clearly underemployment, and I should say at the outset, Jeff, that I'm not formally qualified in any of these areas, but it's amazing how much you pick up when you work in an area and how much you grow through that process. So I said, people with disabilities, I believe, are underemployed, and there's a number of advantages in employing people with disability. Generally, they're going to be more loyal because I guess maybe it's harder for them to get meaningful employment, so they're likely to stay around longer. It's obviously beneficial for the person with disability, not just from a financial point of view, but from sense of self-esteem and purpose and that. It also helps the communities they're working in. So I see it's a win-win-win. It's one of the reasons I'm so passionate about it.
Yeah, I've done some research. I did a disability Cert 4 in disability services a few years ago, and one of the things we had to cover was people with disabilities get back into the workforce, and the statistics on the reasons why you should employ people with disabilities is they have less time off, having sickies. They're more likely to do unpaid overtime here and there. They're more loyal. All that sort of thing. It really does help people with disabilities, but getting that information out to the community is the hardest part.
Yeah, I think, because they're going to be more passionate about the job. Disabilities, I guess, is one area that happens. I believe there's other areas that we're also looking at. People coming out of jail. When I was in paid employment, I did a lot of interviews, And one of the first things we had to do was do a police check. If someone had a police check, a police record, we weren't allowed to employ them. So what does that mean for those people? I think migrants and refugees are underemployed. And my mom, I think some of the older people, the people with grey hair, or in my case, no hair, are also underemployed. So I'd love to tackle each of those groups and try and change community and employer attitudes. We're striving to increase productivity in Australia at the moment. And that's one way we could do it, by employing people in those 4 areas, including disability.
Yeah, I recently interviewed Professor John Gilroy. He lectures at Sydney University with Aboriginal health and disabilities. And we were talking about Aboriginal people in remote areas accessing the NDIS and how hard it is. Like, he was saying they have to wait over a year for an OT or a physio to come out and visit them. Then they have to wait for the report to be done, and have to worry about getting the equipment back out to the people in remote areas. It's a huge thing. Here would be great to interview, I think, Professor John Gilroy.
Jeff, thanks for the tip. I'll reach out to him. We're always looking for more heroes to share their stories. I should point out that, Jeff, you've shared your story as a Kintsugi hero. Hasn't been published yet, but I'm very much looking forward to watching that. I watch all of our stories.
Yeah, I did the interview with Daniel Doherty.
Yeah,
he was very, very good. I really enjoyed myself, and I was relaxed. It was really, really good. It was a long one. It was well over an hour, but you'll have to cut that down, edit that back a fair bit.
Yeah.
So, and you also touched on people with disabilities coming out of jail. I also did an interview with the Justice Advocacy Service here in New South Wales, and they mainly deal with people with cognitive impairments. And they have sister organisations in most states. So again, they would be good to get in contact with. I can send you their contact info over email after the live, if you'd like.
Yeah, Jeff, thank you. We got together a group of, I guess, experts with all different sorts of lived experience, men and women who've been in jail, social workers, mental health professionals, as well as people who actually run the jails. One of them was an ex-director of one of the Sydney jails. And stress, I'm not formally qualified in this, but to me, there is absolutely no doubt at all we can dramatically reduce the number of people going into jails and then later on going back into jails. And there's a number of studies that have been done in this. They confirm what I've been saying. Unfortunately, the agenda for political reasons gets hijacked, and some people, for their own purposes, sow this fear. And the fear is, and therefore the answer is we need to build more jails and put more people in jail. But for most people, that just doesn't work. I mean, jail, you can actually learn to become a better criminal. And as I said before, you come out of jail, it's very hard to get employment. It's hard to get accommodation and things like that. And ultimately, you're almost left with no choice but to go back and associate with the people you were associating with before you went into jail and continue on that behaviour. So I feel there's huge opportunities to reduce people going back into jail. I think the average cost of having someone in jail per year in Australia is around $160,000. And I think from memory, there was about somewhere between 40 and 50,000 people in Australian jails at the moment. If you multiply those numbers out, it's significant cost savings, as well as you got the benefit of someone being a cost to the community, being in jail, to actually coming out and being productive, maybe building some of these houses that we desperately need, or maybe working in the hospitals where we need more nurses. So it's frustrating that we're in this position, and that's whether people have got in jail have got disabilities or not. But I feel it's a really important project. It's one I've had to pause at the moment because of health issues, but I'd love to progress that in 2026.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea. It's I've got extended family members have been in and out of jail their whole lives, and um, I'm not a huge fan of them. I think they're, you know, um, a drain on the community. Um, but I know there's other people in jail who really don't deserve to be in there, and they should be given every opportunity to
Yeah.
improve themselves for when they do get out.
Yeah. One of the biggest lessons, Jeff, that I've learned over the last 11 and a half years, is how judgmental I was. And I've replaced judgment with love. When you see someone who's homeless or someone who's addicted, or in this case, someone who's in jail, often as a society, and this is where I was, you would make a judgment of that. But we haven't been through their lived experience. We're seeing through a lot of our stories. There's many of the people who are homeless or got an addiction may have been sexually abused as a child or something like that. So there's a number of other factors. I don't think anyone sets out a goal. I'm going to become addicted. I want to go to jail. It's these experiences, and when I change that thinking, it's how can I support these people? I'm not going to judge them. It's a really refreshing attitude. And I believe what you just said, some of the people in jail, I believe a lot of people in jail, it's no benefit to society having them there. And if we actually looked at the root, tried to address the root cause rather than just addressing the symptom, society would be a lot better off economically and community-wise.
I think so. I totally agree. There was a story, I don't know if you've seen it on the news yesterday, about these young violent offenders in Victoria getting free holidays up in Queensland. And it was being paid supposedly through the NDIA. They've come out and denied it. I'm really frustrated with the media at the moment because they talk about the NDIA and they imply that people with disabilities are just rotting the system. And I find that the exact opposite.
Yeah, I think the media does that across a whole bunch of different areas. They want to sensationalise. They drive up. The end effect is they drive up racism. They drive up their attitudes to people with disabilities, who we were just talking about, this rotting of the system and all that. Yeah, it might happen 1 in 100, but the general public, because that's the only thing they see. For that, let's assume one of those cases was happening. For every one of those, there'd be another 100 or even more where that's not happening, but they just doing it to sell their papers or their their TV show or whatever. It's not biased reporting. It's a sad reflection that with the decline in the established media that I grew up with, there's a lack of independent reviews of what's going on. There's, the term fake news is happening more and more often, and there's less sources of news, and the control is going to fewer and fewer organisations. You look at what's going on with climate change. So I follow politics a bit in Australia and America, but if you watch, say, Fox News, it's all a load of rubbish, and that's the thing that's being pushed. If you go to non-Fox News, and where they follow, say, science and all that sort of stuff, it's like this is a serious issue. So it's disappointing that the media, for their own financial purposes, can distort situations like what you're saying with the disability NDIA sort of apparent rot that's going on at the moment.
Yeah, it's unfair, and it just portrays people with disabilities in a poor light, in my opinion. You mentioned that a few minutes ago that you're going through some health issues. Do you want to expand on that? Because we spoke about it before. But you said you were happy to talk about it. So, do you want to? You're right.
No problems at all. So, in my 71 years, I was fortunate to play a large amount of sport. I played tennis for over 60 years. And if I was going to brag, I'd say I won a gold medal at the World Masters Games when they were in Sydney. But I grew up at a time where a tan was healthy. we put stuff like coconut oil on our skin to get a healthy tan. And I remember as a kid, you'd run around without a shirt on, and I get these blisters on my shoulders, and my nana would get a needle and thread and stick it through the blisters to drain all the fluid out. And fast forward over decades of getting sunburnt, I don't think there's any such thing as a tan. It's just you're just progressively getting burnt. And I started getting more and more skin issues. I had the trifecta, the melanoma, squamous cell, and the basal. Like there's 3 types of things. And then probably around 2019, I had this thing that came up on my head up here, and ignored it for a while. And anyway, ultimately they did a biopsy, and it was melanoma. And the standard process then is they operate or cut it out, and they take a safety margin and do a check on the safety margin. And that came back, they got it all. And then a couple of years later, probably 2012, I felt a lump down here, went back, did a biopsy, and the melanoma had spread, and it wrapped itself around one of the arteries here. So then went through a major surgery where they cut me from here all the way down here. They actually also found a small cancer in my thyroid, so they used that as an opportunity to take that out. And then I went on immunotherapy. So what I had, I guess, was stage 3 or 4 melanoma cancer at that point. 20 years ago, I believe 95% plus people with stage 4 melanoma would be dead within 12 months. And then there's been this radical improvement for melanoma with immunotherapy. So not chemotherapy, immunotherapy. So I went on the first immunotherapy drug, which works in the majority of cases and has limited side effects. This thing called Nivo. So I was on that for 12 months. They regularly do a PET scan. So a PET scan, they inject radioactive stuff into you, go into a tube, and the cancer spots, any cancer spots show up as like bright lights. And so I went through 12 months of Nivo. All the PET scans showed nothing. And then, so it's all good. Stopped the immunotherapy. Still had PET scans. The second PET scan after I stopped the immunotherapy showed bright spots in my left lung. So more biopsies. And then they've determined that, unfortunately, in my case, the Nivo hadn't stopped the spread. So I then went on what the locals call the sledgehammer, which is Nivo plus this other immunotherapy drug, which can cause serious side effects. So I went on that. I was supposed to have 4 doses of that. After the 3rd dose, I just got awful colitis. Colitis is where you just keep going to the toilet. So I was going to the toilet 20 times a day, and my weight plummeted. I lost 20 kilos in 6 weeks, and I spent a lot of that time in hospital. They're trying to work out how to stop the colitis. I guess the positive news was, because this is my immune system reacting to the immunotherapy, and because it reacted so strongly, that's in a way what they wanted. Then my immune system started tackling the cancer cells that were in my lungs. And the last report I heard from the oncologist is that the lumps in my lungs are in remission. So that was a really good sign. And I've been on massive doses of steroids to try and stop the colitis, and now I'm putting back weight on. I guess the downer that about they're still doing PET scans and brain scans, and a scan 2 months ago showed that I've now got cancer tumors in my brain. Which is frustrating. It would have been good to, now I can get back on the road again. So that treatment's about to start. A couple of weeks ago, they made a mold of my head. Like it's they actually strap you on into this machine that's going to do the radiation, and the idea is you can't move your head at all. They need it down to like a millimetre. So I start that in a couple of days, and the idea is that there's a number of small tumours in my brain, and they will zap those over 3 different treatment sessions, and then the hope is that's it. So it's been a pretty challenging journey, particularly the last 6 months, and been in lots of time in hospital. People thinking I was about to die, and if people see pictures of myself a couple of months ago, I look like I'm just starved, because even though I was eating, because you go in the toilet so much, the body gets no nutrients from that. Jeff, can I just add? So I've gone from incredibly capable physically and mentally. I used to pride myself on my fitness. I was still riding my bike 150 kilometres a week, and my goal was to ride over 7,500 kilometres this year. And then to be in a position with the sudden weight loss, I can't walk properly. I've had a number of falls, and because the weight loss has damaged my sciatic nerve, and I walk like I'm on the Thunderbirds A Go show, and expecting that nerve damage will repair itself. But the point I want to make, I've gone from this level of capability down to famished, not being able to walk, and instead of people coming in because they think I'm about to die. But the dominant emotion at that time was just gratitude. It's hard to explain. We often focus on what we've lost. I remember vividly one day I was in hospital. I was in the shower. I had to hold on to the rails, and I just thought, and I had the hot water running over my body, and I just thought, how good is life to be able to have hot water and stand here? And there's been other things like that. So it's never been a woe is me, and I don't know whether I'm going to survive this or not. But there's so many things to be grateful for. The relationships we've got, the fact that we're in a country where the hospitals, the medical service is so good, that we've got hot water, that we've got people who care about us. And I love that. I mean, we're all going to die. I've got a faith, and what will be will be. I mean, I'd love to live for at least another 10 years. There's so many other things I want to do, but but I'm incredibly grateful for what I have.
Oh, look, yeah, I totally understand it. When I was being interviewed by Dan, I was heavily into weights, and over like a week and a half period, I had like a slight twinge in the left hip, and going completely paralysed from the waist down. Getting their ambulance to Sydney, they find a tumour in the spinal cord. Had an operation. They did a biopsy. Come back, it was an astrocytoma, which usually occurs in the brain or the brainstem. I got mine in the L3 region of the spinal cord. They told me I'd never walk again. And I said, oh, no, I'm going to walk out of the hospital. And after about 4 or 5 months, I got wheeled down to the front door, and I walked out the front door. I had my mother on one side and my aunt on the other, and my uncle parked his car right up against the door. But I walked out the front door. I was so pleased with myself. But it took me a couple of years to get a sort of normal gait back as well. And you also mentioned you were on steroids. Is it like prednisone?
Yeah, like a lot of side effects. I know there's a lot of people taking steroids, prednisone, but like I'm taking supplements, like it weakens your bones. I mean, I could talk for ages about the side effects that it's had on me, and I'm keenly looking forward to getting off them. But apparently you can't just go cold turkey. You've got to slowly reduce them down, and that's what I'm going through. Just coming back to what they said to you, I'd love to do a podcast series of famous comments or whatever that people have said to us that have driven us on. And I like what you just said then. I had someone close to me say to me once, because I had this job opportunity to move to a higher paid job, and this person said to me, "Oh, Ian, they'd never pay someone like you that sort of money." And I anyway, there's a number of other things, and sometimes I guess we can allow those comments to impact us and we take them on board, or in other cases, we use them to motivate us. There was one of our stories, I forgot his surname, Tynan, and he's a tradie, and he fell off some scaffolding and got major brain and other damage to his body. And as he's going through the rehab, he asked what sort of employment opportunities, and they said, "Oh, you'll never work again." And he said, "Well," and he couldn't walk properly. He said, "Well, could I become a baggage handler at the airport?" And they said, "No, you wouldn't be able to do that." He went on and got a master's in mental health stuff. I forget what the qualification was, and he's running Ironman, he's running marathons. So
Wow.
it's those sort of stories. I'm so competitive that someone saying something like that to me would motivate me, and clearly, Jeff, it's motivated you. I love it, and you're walking now. You probably walk better than me.
Well, I can't walk for long, but yeah, I sort of have a normal gait. But when I was on prednisone, that was 89. I got my tumor in 1992. I contracted MS, and that attacked my optic nerve. So I was on a low dosage of prednisone, but the attacks kept coming back bigger and stronger. So I had up my prednisone from 2.5 milligrams a day to 135 milligrams a day. And that caused, I was medically induced osteoporosis. So I'd fallen over and broken vertebrae, and I've done that multiple times. T4 to T12 had just collapsed and basically disintegrating. So I'm in a lot of back pain. And I was on fentanyl patches for the pain.
Yeah,
and I got up to about 100 micrograms patches. And my doctor said, "Oh, I'm really starting to worry, because this sort of high dosage of painkillers over a long period, like you've been on," he said, "that can produce early onset dementia." I went, "Oh, crap. I've got to get off." So it took me about 2 years to get off the fentanyl patches. I'm still on oxycodone, but I'm no longer taking fentanyl patches. So you are right. Those things that people do say can either motivate you or scare you so much that you've actually got to do something about it.
Yeah, I said I could talk for a while about the impact of the steroids. I got cankles, like these massive feet that just look horrendous. I couldn't put my shoes on. My shoes wouldn't fit, no matter how loose. You mentioned the impact on the bone, so I take calcium and potassium, trying to minimize that. I find I'm not even aware of scratching myself, but then it will just keep bleeding profusely. So my whole skin's a lot more fragile and weaker. I was at one of the government offices recently, talking at the counter. When I looked down, all this blood had run down my arms all over the counter. I wasn't even aware of it. And there's a number of other side effects. So I heard it's a wonder drug, but I guess being careful with moderation. I also heard that steroids, and in particular what I'm on, can impact the efficacy of the immunotherapy, particularly with brain cancers. So I've got this difficult situation. There's science showing that if I'm on these steroids, it reduces the impact, particularly with the brain cancers I've got. But I've been told that if I get off the steroids, that the colitis could come back, or there could be some other issue, and then we start the whole cycle again. And I found in this journey, often you get information, but I've got to make the decisions myself whether to go ahead with something. Like, Jeff, I guess you're in the same boat. They give you advice, but you query it, and ultimately it's up to you which course of action you take. Is that there?
Oh, yeah, I've learnt to listen to my body. I'm very much more aware of triggers, indicators that something's going on or something's going to happen. I'll give you an example. The drug Fosamax. When I first tried to go on, it was only for menopausal women, so I couldn't get on it. eventually I got on, and I rang up the drug company to see if they could, at that stage, help me out, because it wasn't covered under the PBS, and they sent some samples to my GP, so he could give the samples to me, because they couldn't do it directly. But the chemist at the drug company said, don't take it all the time. Take it for 3 years, go off for 3 years, go back on it for 3 years, go off for 3 years. So I was doing that, and a couple of years ago, I fell over and broke my left hip, and I had to have a rod put in. And I had these 2 young med students, and a young bloke was saying, "Oh, you should be on Fosamax. It's good for osteoporosis." I said, "No, I can't go on it." Had my, and this is what I said. I was told not to do it full time. I have to go on a couple of years, off for a couple of years. No, you need to be on full time. I went, no, that's not what the chemist said. He said, "Well, I'm a doctor," and I went, no, you listen to me. I said, "How old are you?" And he said, 24. And I said, "I've been on Fosamax longer than you've been alive, sunshine. I know my body. I know what I can and can't do. I know what my body can and can't handle." And he just gave up and walked away. But those sort of people trying to push their own agendas, it really, I take it for a little bit, then I sort of push back.
Yeah. I've got a mate who had prostate cancer, and he was seeing some specialists, and he had one guy who was all about chemo or whatever, radiation, I think it was, and another professional, health professional, saying no, surgeries to go. And they're both arguing with each other on the best way, and this guy was sort of getting stressed out. And I found even this journey, I've got to make some of these decisions myself. When they found the brain tumours a couple of months ago, he immediately wanted to radiate. And I thought, well, no, let's see if they're growing or shrinking or whatever. So I think it's a good point you raised. I think it's important we listen to our body, maybe seek some extra opinions on what the situation is. Maybe go to Dr. Google. I've been fairly public with what I'm going through. I feel it's the Kintsugi heroes thing to do. I know, and I respect people's rights. If they're sick, they just want to keep everything quiet. But I've put stuff up, and I've had a lot of alternate therapies suggested to me. In fact, on the weekend, someone was suggesting baking soda and aloe vera. So there's a theory that our body pH can help determine whether we're going to cancer or not. Apparently, our pH is generally too high, and we want to take alkaline things that are going to lower it down. And if we do that, then it can, But it's been everything from go on a diets that just meat. One thing they're all consistent of is with avoid sugar. But with my eating, the prednisone's made me want to eat like a horse, and I'm having ice creams and chocolates and all these things I shouldn't be eating. But anyway, it's I think we should be carefully analyze what our choices are and get the right information before we just blindly go down a path.
I couldn't agree more. I think you need to research all your options. Modern medicine has its place, but I think the old natural remedies can also assist along the way too. So I wouldn't dismiss them too quickly.
Yeah. Could I just make a point? Obviously, I've got into investigating cancers a little bit. The bad news is that it appears that virtually the rate of every type of cancer is increasing. You look at bowel cancer; it's impacting younger and younger people, and all the rates seem to be going up. The good news is that the treatment's getting better and better with things like immunotherapy, and there's new machines that they can freeze tumours and things like that. Richard Scollier, apparently, according to Facebook this morning, is now cancer-free. He's the Australian of the Year who got cancer in the brain. And I believe they're heading to the point where, say, in my case, it will be, you got melanoma, but it's not just it's this type of melanoma. and they'll look at my biogenome and, okay, this is Ian's biogenome. This is what we will do to fix that type of melanoma in Ian's biogenome. And they'll do that across all cancers. They're starting to do it now. If we can get through the next 10 years, I think we'll be in a far better position. I believe the rates of cancer are increasing for a number of reasons, but our diet, more processed food, stress, obesity, lack of exercise, all these things, and even our relationships aren't like most of the kids I mentored at school came from a broken home. There's no male role models for the young guys. So there's a number of things around that scene that's contributing to ever-increasing rates of cancer and maybe other health issues. But the good news is that we're getting better and better at sorting those things out.
Yeah, I agree. And this something I like to point out too is that, you know, whether you have a newly acquired disability or ongoing health issues, whatever the case may be, support, you know, families, members, you know, wives and children, the supports that we have are so undervalued by the general community and the government. I interviewed the head of Carers Australia.
Right.
Carers in Australia saved the government, up to their estimations, $100 billion a year.
Wow.
100 billion that they saved the government because they're doing all the caring for nothing. They might get a carer's allowance, but yeah, the actual work they do is far exceeding what the allowance would pay somebody else to do. So $100 billion, that's a lot of money.
It's huge. Jeff, thanks for raising that. Like, we got some sponsorship from Bupa to do a podcast series shining the light on unpaid carers. These unsung heroes who are out there in the world and obviously delivering significant financial as well as community value. The second thing I was going to say, sometimes as a society, we struggle to provide support when someone's got a disability or a situation, like if there's been a grief situation or someone's got cancer or whatever. Sometimes there can be a tendency to avoid those people deliberately. I might say the wrong thing, or I don't know what to do, or I might trigger something, or, you know, someone's died, oh, let's not mention that, like they never existed. And I feel that it'd be great to educate the community that if someone's going through a health journey, or has got a disability, look for ways that you can positively engage with that person. Make eye contact, ask them how they're going, have a conversation. And I feel many people just avoid those situations. It's like, yeah. What, do you agree with me on that?
I do. People are always worrying about being too PC.
Yeah.
And that sort of puts them at a distance from, you know, someone who they're close to. What really raised my awareness was in 1988 when I was making the decision of going blind to go off the medication, the prednisone. I spoke to my wife and we decided, both decided that that was my best option. So I reached out to the Royal Blind Society in New South Wales at that stage. Vision Australia wasn't an organisation then. And I talked to my wife and I said, they're going to help with this and they're going to help with that and they're going to help me look into this. And she said, well, that's good for you. But she said, but what about me? I don't know what to do either. And it just made me stop and realise that all these people out there who are ready and willing to able to help, but they don't know how to.
Yeah. Yeah. And where's the support for them?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Like Carers Australia, they have branches, every state, multiple locations in every state. Now, they work along with the federal government and state government to help their carers, their clients. But the local branches, we have one here where I live in Armidale, and she comes out and she gives talks to different groups and stuff like that. And the things that they can help with, I was amazed to what they can do to help. Absolutely amazed. So if anybody's listening, reach out and find out if there's a carers organisation close to you.
Yeah. And I guess the sad fact is there's ever increasing number of people who live on their own. Relationships break down, or their partners died, and these these people lack a community of support around them. But maybe these other organisations you just mentioned would play a vital part in helping fill that gap.
Yeah, and it's needed. These carers that we have, like my wife, my children, they are so undervalued. I appreciate everything they do, but to the rest of the community, they don't exist.
Yeah. So yeah, let's raise their profile through your podcast or through doing some other ones. I'd love to do some more stories around carers, and I guess for many people they don't realise the importance till they're actually in a position where they become a carer themselves, or they need a carer.
And I think it's I know I've gone through a hell of a lot over the last since 1989, nearly 40 years. But it's been just as hard for my wife and my children. Yeah. And nobody ever acknowledges it.
No. Yeah. Well, I've seen that with my own, like I said, apparently there was a 70% chance I was going to die when the first round of immunotherapy didn't work. And it was a bit of a shock to a number, because people had seen me fit and active and all that. And it's a shock to them, and it raises a number of things. Do you change your plans, and what do you want to do? And to be honest, my wife has felt a bit jibbed. I've been putting huge amounts of time as a volunteer into running, giving back to the community. But one of her comments, well, what about me? You're going to die. And, she's felt left out a lot over the last 11 and a half years. So it may be, sometimes it's probably worth considering that. I know they've done interviews of people who are in palliative care and asking them if they could change anything about their life, what would it be? In most cases, it's work less, focus more on the relationships that are important. And in my case, I love what I've done. The last 11 and a half years has been the most fulfilling, purpose-filled of my life, and I've learned so much from it. But I acknowledge,
I appreciate everything that you do and people like you do. I know the work that you put into it. I've tried to do the same myself. I've done a lot of stuff locally, and I've just started to branch out the last couple of years with this channel. But when I was reading through your profile, you have an OAM. Is that right?
Yeah, it's a funny story. My wife and I were on a cruise from Sydney to Hawaii, and as I always do, which annoys her, I always take my computer with me, and I work while I'm away. And I was on a Zoom call, and I thought someone was spamming me. I got this poorly formed letter from some government person saying that I've been nominated for an OAM. And I said, they're scamming me, I'll delete it. And someone on the other end, hold on, let me check it out, Ian. And it was legitimate. It turns out independently, two sets of people, one on behalf of Mentoring Men and one on behalf of Kintsugi Heroes, who don't know each other, had actually put this thing in. And it was approved. And I can't remember if it's this year or I think it was last year. Time just blurs. But we went to New South Wales Government House. I'd never been there before. I met the governor, and it was great, but more great for my wife. She'd seen the sacrifice. She's put in a lot of sacrifices to support me with what I do, and she was able to meet and chat with the governor and get some photos taken, and it was just it was great. So yeah, I've got an OAM. I mean, there's lots of people who do like you do, Jeff, amazing things in the community. Some is recognised, some is not recognised, but it's opened up doors. I got a lot of letters from politicians offering to help and things. I haven't taken any of them up on it, but it's opened doors. Yeah, and I want Kintsugi Heroes to be a legacy that continues to grow long after I'm not around. So that's my goal, and the OAM will help with that.
Well, congratulations. I think it's very well deserved. I'm proud to be a part of it with my story that I've done recently with Dan. But yeah, look, I've got to go. I really want to thank you for joining me today and telling your story, and for doing Kintsugi Heroes and mentoring for men. It's a great thing that you've done, and I know a lot of people out there who are going to benefit from it.
Jeff, thank you for the opportunity. I love what you're doing with this channel, and if I can help in any way, and we're doing this, I guess, through the dedicated series that we're doing with around disability stories with Daniel Doherty, and thank you for you sharing your story. I heard it went really well. I haven't been able to, it hasn't been edited yet, but I look forward to watching that. So yeah, and thanks for this opportunity.
No, thank you. Can you just hang on? I want to have a quick chat with you after the stream ends, if that's okay, Ian.
No worries.
All right, so we'll call it quits there for today. Thanks again, Ian. Do appreciate it. If anybody has any stories that they want me to cover or wants some advice or some information, you can email me at blindadvocate007@gmail.com, and please hit that subscribe button. I really need everyone's support. Okay, Chris, do you want to end it there? Okay, thanks, everyone.
Medic! Medic! I've been hit with the truth! Man down! Man down! Quick, like and subscribe before it's too late!
Stage.